the matter? Someone pissed in all your Cheerios. We called muttering for a reason. So here we go. If you wanna sleep behind the board, I'm gonna tear you down. Because the people want music and lyrics, and the soundboy town makes me right. I wanna wake the town now. Why, soundboy, why? Won't you make me right? We wanna sound good tonight. Why, soundboy, why? Can we hear the bass drums? Don't you know we're the ranking bird the A number one? Why, soundboy, why? Won't you mix me right? We wanna sound good tonight.
Hello, and welcome to Dollops for Donuts, Denver's dollop of music history. Today, we have a very special guest, someone who knows and knew the Denver music scene. He's an accomplished musician, Denver native and historian, Dollops founder, and the love of my life. This is Season 2, Episode 6. I'm Tracy Weaver, guest host, and welcome, Nate Weaver.
Hi, Tracy. Thanks for having me. This is kind of different. You came up with this idea. I thought it would be interesting, so we're giving it a shot.
Would you like to talk more about why you wanted to do it this way and maybe some of the dedications you were thinking?
I do. So first, I would like to also introduce our dog, Esmeralda, who's in the background. I won't be able to edit all of this stuff out, so... but yes, I actually would like to dedicate this episode to my dad, who unfortunately we lost last year, and I miss him every day. So it's been quite a shitty couple of years, honestly. So, and my dad was somebody who always supported the music that I was making and my drumming in general. And when I started doing the podcast, he was really excited. Like, one of the things he really enjoyed was when you and I did the Tom Petty Last DJ. So that was something he really got a kick out of. So, and I think going back and listening to a lot of the stuff that, I've got to have been a part of, luckily in my life, and the friends that I've had over the years and still have in some cases. But my dad was always super supportive and, was always at all of my shows, even more shows than I was at. So, but I love him for it. And, going through a lot of his stuff, I actually found like a list of like all of his favorite songs of stuff that I had done. And it was something that really meant a lot to me. So that was really cool. Thank you, Dad. And I would also like to... just because, you've also been so supportive, Tracy, and this was your idea, and, you've always wanted me to kind of be creative with Dollops, and it's something that I've really enjoyed, these past few years. It's been a challenge for sure, and you've been there every step of the way, always had my back, so thank you, my love, and... I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. So, and I kind of get into more detail, but, I am grateful, that I've gotten to do this, and going back and like talking about all of these things, whether it's Soul Society or the Beat Crib or, just the different venues over the years and the friends and family that, you choose to have in your life. And it's really been something special. So I'm glad I've been able to share it, and I'm sure we'll continue in Season 3. We're just kind of working through things as they are right now.
I really hope you do, because it's been fun watching you develop and grow with this project.
Thanks, man.
So I know that you have an idea how this episode will go, but you did give me the big chair at, our kitchen table. So I just wanted to start with a few questions.
For sure.
Tell me about the name of this podcast, Dollops for Donuts. Like, how did you come up with that?
Well, I mean, when I was younger, as when you were younger too, like we, spent a lot of time drinking coffee, and, whether we went to Perkins and drank coffee or, downtown at Muddy's or, Paris on the Platte, maybe St. Mark's when it was still on Market Street. Those things were always, kind of cornerstones and hanging out when you were younger. And some of my friends and I, we really also enjoyed donuts. It's something I enjoyed with my grandfather, too, when I would go up to Toronto. And, it's having a donut and a cup of coffee. It's, and sharing a conversation. I think it kind of reflects on that. And then, the whole dollops thing, because I got to be honest, like Andrew, who I started this podcast with, he came up with part of that. I had kind of pitched the idea of the podcast to him, and, we did the first, I think, first season together pretty strong. And, anyway, but once he kind of, decided that he wanted to be a part of it, we were trying to kind of come up with a name that revolved around Denver. And, I had gone to, many donut shops with Andrew over the years. And then also, when we were in Scramblehead together, we had played a show in Salt Lake City and driving back. And, him and I picked up this huge bag of chocolate donuts to eat on the way back from this show that we played in Salt Lake City. And him and I were kind of driving late at night. I typically usually was a part of the night shift when we went out of the state. I just felt more comfortable kind of staying up and doing the traveling part at night. But anyway, so we were getting close. We were in Wyoming and the sun was kind of coming up and it was super foggy. And I had fallen asleep. I was on the passenger side of the van and Andrew was driving, and I had pretty much made myself sick with as many donuts as that I had eaten. I kind of half woke up and I thought, we had wrecked and, we were in heaven just because it looked so majestic, as far as, the fog and the sun coming up and, just the hills and everything. So it was fun. And, we kind of always joked about that and, the chocolate donut, sunrise. So anyway, but so it kind of came from a couple of things, and I just thought it was kind of a kooky name that we could use and have a decent logo and all that kind of stuff with. So
your logo's awesome. Yeah. Who did the logo for Dollops?
That was Travis Jackson Little. So one of my best friends over the years, and a great, fantastic artist. He was a part of the Soul Society episode. And, has been a big supporter of a lot of the things that I've done over the years. And I've tried to be, equally supportive to him. So he is fantastic and currently doing quite a few things. So you guys should check him out if you get a chance. So he's usually got a lot of shows going on, does things at Mutiny. And, it's always good to support all those guys. So.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I'm looking at two pieces of his art right now.
Yeah.
A piece he made for our wedding,
right,
and a piece that is tattooed on your arm that I can kind of see.
Right. To both of those things. Yeah, we have several of his pieces actually throughout the house.
Travis, I hope you're listening to this. We need more, please. So every episode you've done, you've bought a box of donuts.
Yes.
And today was no exception. Would you please talk about the donuts that are on our table that are driving our dog crazy? We're probably going to have to move the donuts.
Sure. So these are from King Soopers, which is kind of lame, but in the same sense, they're the cherry cake donuts. So we got the glaze and then we got the chocolate, which I haven't had before. The glaze are fantastic. So growing up and going to King Soopers, I know, I'm sure you had moments with the same, you could get a free cookie, usually as a kid, and the baker would come out and give you a cookie, or and it was usually a cherry roundie. So, and this is the similar recipe, and it's just fantastic. So, you introduced me to these, and I just love them. So I've been picking them up a couple of times, and I just figured, today would be good because this, This dog, she's insatiable. I thought it was a good idea.
It was a great idea. I do think we should probably move the donuts because she's going nuts.
Sure. Let's take a pause and we'll move the donuts.
Are we back?
Yep.
Well, thank you for the little pause. Hopefully that helped. We have moved the donuts. Unfortunately, Esmeralda probably just wants to be on this table with us, and there's nothing we can do about that. She's a sweetheart.
She is.
Well, let's go back in time. Nate, why drums?
Well, I mean, it really goes back to the Muppet Show and Animal and, getting to see someone or something play as crazy as he did. I think Jim Henson even talked about that character being based on Keith Moon. I'm not a huge Who fan, as you know, but I do have a lot of respect for Keith and, how he played and the passion that he played with and, all that. And if that is true with Jim Henson using some of that as an inspiration for Animal, that it makes a lot of sense, but honestly, aside from that, it also kind of came from, when they used to play the Monkees on Nickelodeon, which was one of my big turn-ons to music. I'll be honest, I know a lot of people might make fun of me for that, and you can go ahead do that. But I used to love watching those shows, and just watching like Mickey and Mike and Peter and Davey. But Mickey was my, one of my favorites just because he was the drummer. But I guess technically, like Davey actually played drums, but they had to like switch, roles based on, whatever the TV show wanted or studio or whatever. But that's kind of where it came from. But also, my parents had recently gotten divorced at that time, and my mom was getting ready to go back to school, and she had asked, what I wanted to get into, and was, willing to let me play drums, which I think she probably regretted like years down the road. So, but we'll get into that maybe a little bit later.
So did your mom buy you your first drum kit?
She did, and she actually was the one that got me set up at Crescendo with lessons. And I did that for years and just had like my little practice pad, which was pretty depressing way to start playing a musical instrument. But then, soon after that, I was in middle school and, I had like a little snare drum. And that was kind of cool. And I could kind of screw around on the kit that they had there, which was actually pretty terrible. It was at Euclid Middle School. It wasn't, the best of all the equipment, but I still used to like to jam on it when I could. But yes, like, my mom, it was right around that same time. I think I was in 6th or 7th grade. It was right after I had gotten sick, and kind of... And during the time that I was still recovering, and she ended up like, getting it through Crescendo, like Smitty and her figured out like a plan. And I was over the moon. Like I never stopped playing, those first few years. Like I would just buy as many records as I could and play along with them. And then I was also taking lessons every Saturday at Crescendo. So usually I would spend, my first part of my morning in my lesson and then second part of my morning at Offbeat Records, like buying whatever I was going to practice to that week. So, it was, mostly my mom, like that was a big Insperado for all of this. And I can't thank her enough for it because it really... A, kept me out of trouble, and B, just, it was something that I really fell in love with and still love to this day. So
you had lessons and you practiced a lot. You were obviously very passionate. I would like to hear about the Motley Crue song.
So, I mean, growing up, like, like a lot of this was happening in like, the late 80s, early 90s. And, I had learned, well, I was lucky enough, like, cause I had one drum teacher and then he had left Crescendo and I started working with Mark Foster, and Mark Foster was willing to like sit and listen to a song and put it to tablature, which was, pretty impressive, first of all, but I know it took hours to do too. And just a really great guy. I worked with Mark all the way through college. Actually, he was my drum teacher in college too, but he let me pick a couple of songs, and I mean, I always kind of had quite like an eclectic variety, like, cause one of them was Motley Crue, Wild Side, just because I thought that, that song was so cool. Not just because Tommy Lee went upside down in a cage, but just it was a very cool beat and just something that, you wouldn't necessarily expect from like a hair metal song, or at least to me. But I always thought Tommy actually did some pretty creative stuff over the years. So, but also in the 80s, he didn't really have a lot to choose from as far as really, drummers that were breaking the mold by any means. There was a handful for sure. And that was really cool. But so that was one song. And then the other was The Cure, Hot, Hot, Hot. So, which was one of my favorites. And also, another drummer that I just loved and adored at that time. And yeah, so I was lucky that Mark would take all that time doing that. So thank you, Mark.
It sounds like you've had a lot of great support.
Oh, yeah.
Musically.
Well, and I've talked about a lot of it, just even from, meeting my bandmates to, all the people that have supported us over the years, all of the friends that have gone to so many shows, and, schoolmates and Smitty, sponsoring us when we were younger, and Kathy putting our article on the window, like when we first like got into Westward. And yeah, it's been amazing, like CJ and Dave Hales and Terry Beck, those guys, Danny V. Hill, who were all a part of Iota Records, like they took us under their wing, and it was something I never would have expected, truthfully. Like, I was really lucky to meet all those folks and to be able to share this with them too, and them being a part of my life and our lives. Danny designing the cover of like our big tape that came out, Parental Advisory for Vivid Imagination, and and putting together many Iota shows, all of those guys. And, like when we first recorded that album, we were in there. It was like this art space. It was downtown. It was like 14th, I think in Grant or Logan. I can't remember exactly, but it was like an old apartment building or old hotel, and like we were just in this little room. We have a picture of it over there of like me and Mike, and then I think Levi's sitting on the couch and Ben is playing too. And yeah, I remember at one point like the neighbors were like screaming at us to stop. And so those were always funny things, like, that kind of stuff, and being able to do that. And it was a lot of fun. Those guys really did a lot to support us. So yeah, we were really, really lucky, Jerry Baker, he recorded some of our first songs at Crescendo Music, and he was Mike's guitar teacher, and I believe Levi too. So I'm not 100% sure on that, but we all took lessons at Crescendo, so it was all kind of how we ended up meeting-ish. So we had mutual friends too. So Littleton was much smaller of a town than it is now, and it was just much easier for stuff like that to happen.
So that's a great segue into where I wanted to go next, and talking about some of these bands that you have been in throughout your life and your musical career. We aren't going to be able to capture them all, but let's go ahead and start with Vivid Imagination. Sure. Can you tell me how old you guys were, who was in the band,
yeah,
and what your musical goal was, what type of music you were trying to do. And I want to hear about these high school girls that liked you.
Yeah. Well, first, I guess when we started, I was probably like 12, because I think we played our first show when I was 13. And
where was that show?
That was at my friend's house down the street, Brandy Roberts. It was her birthday party. And it was just me, Mike, and Ben that were Vivid Imagination at the time. And, we only had I think 5 songs, like maybe 2 or 3 songs of our own. And then we did 2 Cure covers and I think a Sex Pistols cover. So, we were all still learning and things were pretty fresh. So you could say we definitely all evolved with each other, and it was kind of cool to see over the years, and it was also part of the reason why we ended up stopping, but also it led us to a lot of fun and great moments together that we got to share as friends, and I'll always cherish those days for sure. So I remember because it was my friend Patrick that, had knew Mike, and we all lived within a half mile of each other, pretty much. Levi might have been out of that scope a little bit just because he lives on the west side of Littleton. But overall, we were all pretty close. And I was walking home from school one day, and Mike kind of introduced himself. So I was in 6th grade and had just come back from, all of my stuff from my first surgery. So it was 1989. And I was walking my girlfriend home, Crystal, and he was just, he kind of interrupted us, and I don't remember what the hell we were talking about, but he was just so is your name Nate? And I was just yeah. And he's do you play drums? And he's like, I'm friends with Patrick, and because we all skateboarded too. That was the big thing, and that's something that I had started doing years ago, when I was in elementary school, and it was Patrick that got me involved in that, and then that's kind of how we had all met each other, just because that was a pretty small group in those days, and we got harassed quite a bit, the whole skate or die, or people calling us different names, and just chasing us in their big trucks, or that came later in high school, but so it started there, and Mike and I kind of met each other, and then he told me that he had been playing guitar for a while and that we should get together, and that his brother played drums, and so he had a drum kit set up at his parents' house, and his brother John, who I also knew. I mean, it was very, very tight knit, little town, and because John and everybody, they were freshmen in high school ish, a little bit older than us, and him and Patrick were in the same grade together. So anyways, but and so Mike had invited me over to go play at his house, and we just kind of jammed a few different songs that we knew, and songs that he had learned on the guitar, and I mean, it was everything from Great White, Once Bitten, Twice Shy, to to the Sex Pistols, and we were literally just trying to kind of, it not only was stuff suggested by his guitar teacher, I'm sure, but that was also the popular music at the time. So that's just kind of how things were, and I mean, from my lessons, it was more about kind of learning, to do a lot of just versatility with your hands. And, but you start out when you're playing drums, just really kind of focusing on the snare drum, and then kind of moving into a kit and doing all that kind of stuff, or at least that's how it worked with me. So, yeah.
Tell me about some of the bigger venues that allowed Vivid Imagination to play. Maybe the Mercury Cafe or some other areas around town that just trusted their stage to a bunch of kids.
Right. Well, I mean, Maryland was amazing to us for sure. And, you know, that's where you and I got married too. And it was great to actually be able to share that with Marilyn too. You know, like that was one of the last wedding seasons I think she did before she retired. So we felt pretty lucky about that. But holy shit, you know, everything she did for Vivid over the years, and the amount that we played at the Mercury Cafe, and some of the, you know, she did trust us, and she liked our fans, and we were always very respectful, and, you know, wouldn't ever let things get out of hand. You know, it was most of Littleton High School that would go to those shows. You know, but we had a pretty decent following, and it got bigger as like we got older and the songs got better, and we got to play some really cool places. But I mean, the Mercury was always super special. You know, Marilyn was super special, and she did so much for so many people, between the people that worked there and all the bands that got to play at the Mercury. It was such a wonderful place. It makes me sad that it's on its way out, and you know, it was unfortunate, and I don't know. I mean, Denver has just changed so much, and we've lost so many things. I still have hope that it has a lot of character yet, but it really just is in kind of an empty shell of what it used to be, which is unfortunate. But I'm also not as familiar with what's going on now as I used to be. So, you know, I'm usually staying home with you guys on a Saturday night, and anyway, but no, Marilyn was so fantastic, and I'm just glad I got to share a lot of that with her. I mean, she was the reason why I got to meet Eddie Vedder and Dave Grohl, and you know, and just I got to see and play some of the best shows of my life, like getting to open up for 7 Seconds and twice actually, and you know. And then, you know, all the other bands we played with, like Missing Toes, and who were like one of our friends' bands, and Debaser, and, you know, I mean, Scramble had played there too. That was one of my other bands. And, you know, like just at Foreskin 500, it was a plethora of bands, and but a lot of the old like school, like Colorado, like rock bands, like the Subdudes, and like a lot of kind of unique bands played there. I mean, Devotchka, I know, played there quite a few times. I think Tom, the violinist, like met his wife there, you know, and it's just, there's so many special moments, you know, it's hard to really kind of put that really into perspective for people. Like, you had to really experience it, and experience it with Marilyn, because she really made it special. So
I think it also goes to show how the times have changed, where a bunch of Littleton high school kids could get on a Broadway bus and go downtown. I can't imagine any parent of junior high, lower high school
definitely not
letting them go downtown now. Right. We were definitely very fortunate.
Very much so. So you
toured with Vivid Imagination.
I did twice. So the first was much more successful than the second. So, and they were fun. So, you know, with an asterisk, like there was good times and bad for sure. So, are we getting into the tours now, or did you still want to talk about like some of the other venues?
Oh no, we'll get back to the venues.
Okay.
I want to pull out maybe two things with this tour. Yeah. I know the stories, but I would like to talk about Memphis.
Okay.
And Graceland.
Okay.
Tell me what that was like. Tell us what that was like.
Well,
Tell us about the prostitutes,
sure.
Nate. We want to hear about the prostitutes.
Memphis was kind of a surprise. And mostly because our van had caught on fire. Just, I would say, like probably about 50 miles, 45, 50 miles outside of Memphis. Like, we were actually on the tail end of Arkansas. So we were in our shitty 1976 yellow van that we had purchased from Foreskin 500. And we, you know, they had built a loft in it, you know, and then we put the equipment under the loft. So, guys could sleep while other guys were driving. We thought it was really unique and a good idea. And, had we rolled over in that van, like everybody would have died like instantly. So, I guess hindsight's always 2020, but, anyway, going back and thinking about that, we did some pretty risky shit, and the whole reason like the van, first of all, caught on fire was because, two of the guys that were in the band, I won't really get into names necessarily, but knew that there wasn't a dipstick for the oil, and seemingly like we had run out of oil somewhere in Texas, and there was really no way to check it, and nobody was adding it to it. And so we had a really hot engine with, anyway, caught on fire. We, pulled over on the side of the road. It took a minute to get Mike out. He was actually sleeping, and then we had to pull out all the equipment too, pretty quick. So, and then at that point, a cop had pulled to the side and was talking to us and helping us. And, I'm sure was a little bit upset that he couldn't have pulled us over first. But I mean, if he had come up with enough reason to, and I only say this because we were from Colorado and we were driving through Arkansas, but, he was very nice and very helpful, and ended up, I had AAA and we ended up calling a tow truck. So, they towed the van, and to the motel that we were staying at. And then we ended up having to, junk it out. It was completely, destroyed at that point. And but like driving back was the funniest part of the story, just because going from that wherever we were in Arkansas to Memphis, we were riding with a tow truck driver whose shirt said his name was Tadpole, and he had like a tobacco stain just like on the side of his mouth, seemingly to make it I don't think he was I think he kind of just let the spit fly off the side of him. I don't think he was really trying to get it out the window, or he tried to get it out the window, and it was just, anyway. But
sounds sexy.
It was, but he literally had to fit, I guess it was 5 of us in his cab. So, which wasn't safe either. And that was, a decent enough drive to the Quality Inn that we were staying in on Elvis Presley Boulevard, which, as you said, is not the best part of town in Memphis, and at that time was full of prostitutes, and even some in front of our motel or whatever. So, but it was an interesting time. And at that point, we had to buy a new van if we wanted to continue on that tour, which we did. And it was Levi that had cashed in on his savings and bought the van across the street from Graceland. So, from Earl's, which was quite the experience. And we got temporary tags for 3 weeks. And at some point, the tour was going so horrible that we actually had to drive back to Memphis to get an extension on our temporary tags. So that was awesome. But yeah, that was kind of the story of Memphis. We actually didn't play a show there. We didn't have a show booked until we got to Asheville, North Carolina. So that was the destination.
I can totally see what a used car dealership named Earl's in Memphis. I can see it in my head.
Oh yeah,
it's.
I mean,
there.
he even had the Elvis glasses, and it was great. So,
all right, I'm going to move on from Vivid Imagination. I just want to say, you didn't mention my favorite cover, which was the Vivid Imagination cover of a-ha's "Take on Me,"
right.
Which to me is one of the best covers ever. I thought the way you kids did that song was absolutely brilliant.
That was fun, for sure. And that was Mike's idea, for sure. And he always had good ideas for unique covers, for sure.
And I think there is a part of how life has changed, where a bunch of young kids can just get on a road in an old van and try and do a tour. And now, you see these kids doing van life, and I just want to be bitch, please. This is not how you do.
No. Well, and maybe we weren't doing it right, because there was definitely times where it wasn't easy, for sure. And but there were a lot of great times too. So it was kind of this even balance. But I mean, the first tour was a lot of fun, and I mean, on our first show, Ben and I had all of our clothes, and then my medication was in that bag too, stolen, and money. And that was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Surprise, surprise. And we still, like, well, we had already played the show, but when the next show we were playing was in Phoenix and Tempe, and it was a great show. Like, we met some great people, Junior and a couple other folks, and hung out at the record store, and then went and played the show, and that was a lot of fun. And we made a decent amount, and then we were on our way to Texas, and were able to be a part of like South by Southwest, and that was really cool, especially in like 1995, and got to see Sublime, and even like play with Sublime at a skateboard shop. I mean, we were pretty low on the order, or first on the order of bands to play, but they were going to be playing like later on that day, and we did get to hang out with them. And I did get to talk to Bud, the drummer, and it was a lot of fun. So getting to do that kind of stuff. But they played in like a small club in Austin that was a lot of fun. And Brad took mushrooms on stage, and it was a crazy time. Like, South by Southwest was nuts, but just one of the best times of my life. Like, I was really lucky that I got to be a part of it. So it was cool.
I'm going to move on to another band.
Sure.
Ocean.
Yep.
Can you talk about the other band members in Ocean and the style of music you were trying to do? My understanding, it was very different from where you had come from.
Yep. So, we had like Vivid Imagination had ended after like 10 years. And I think more or less, we all kind of just needed time away from each other. Like, we had spent so much time together. And, it is possible to overdose on folks. So, yeah, like, we all kind of decided, it was mainly Mike wanted to kind of go a separate way and do other things. And I was pretty ready to go myself. So we had a new bass player at that time, and Levi and I had gone back to college, and I knew these other guys, Matt Muha and Sean Inman, and Sean, both of whom went to Heritage High School, which in Littleton, like, there was, at that time, it was like, I think 3 or 4 high schools. Like, it was Littleton, Arapahoe, Heritage, and Columbine had just like opened. And so Sean and Matt, they both went to Heritage, and I knew Matt through Missing Toes. He was a keyboard player for them. And, we were good friends with that entire band, Jim Winning and Pete Nguyen, who was one of my best buddies in high school. And I'm trying to think, Chris Sykes was the singer, original singer. And they had several singers throughout the years. But that's kind of besides the point. Like, so after Vivid Imagination was done, like, I kind of took some time to myself, but then kind of had an idea to do a band that was pretty much just like a rhythm section, which would be, like the drums and keyboard and bass, which is what this band ended up being. And, Matt and Sean and I got together. I think they had already started kind of writing, and had some ideas. But at that time, like, Matt was pretty set on having his brother join our band, and or another guitar player who had played in Missing Toes, Johnny. I forgot about Johnny. Or Justin. Yes, Justin. Sorry, I'm terrible with names, and it's been years. So, can't be too mad at me. But anyway, so they were pretty set on having a guitar player, and we did that for a while. And then it just kind of, Chris wasn't really interested in playing in this kind of a band. And, we had actually had a show booked, and he ended up just kind of like ditching us before the show, like literally like right before it. And so we just decided to go ahead and play the show without him, and kind of Ocean went from there. I think both guitar players kind of ended up working themselves out of the band, and then Sean and I and Matt, we kind of just like talked about it, and we were just like, it's much easier. Just it seems like we have the three that are interested in doing this, and later on we would introduce a vocalist, Amy, who came in and did some amazing stuff with us too, and she was one of the sweetest and just most sincere and awesome people. I'm very glad I got to be a part of Amy's life, and very sad that she's died so young, and it just broke my heart. I was very lucky to kind of, we didn't really have a falling out, but like I hadn't talked to her in so long, and right before she passed, her and I got to hang out a few times, and it really meant a lot to me, and put a lot of things under, or kind of squashed a lot of things, and just, it was really great to be with her and share that time with her. So, but getting back to Ocean, like the other segment to it was Bird, and who I've talked about in other podcasts. Bird's one of my best buddies. Travis and Bird are like my brothers that I've grown up with for years, and Bird especially was a part of Ocean because he did all of the projections, which at first started off as 8mm and then 16mm, or maybe it just started off as 16mm and then he went to digital. And my God, he's just like one of the best artists I've ever known in my life. I mean, Bird has some extraordinary fucking talent, and the stuff he did for us between all of the projections and all of the shows, and when we did the experimental film festival and Telluride, which was fucking amazing and one of the best shows I think I've ever gotten to play, like being able to play in like 100-year-old opera house and like making that place like shake. It was pretty exceptional, and getting to experience that with Bird and Matt and Sean. I don't think Amy was up there with us, but like my girlfriend at the time was Abby, and it was a really great time. And like it was snowing because it was October, and we got to meet a lot of like great artists, like between filmmakers and all of that kind of stuff, and it was a lot of fun. But Bird did so many exceptional things, and still does, and works in advertising, but the kid just has so many talents. Like I just love him to death, and he's been such a great friend to me over the years.
I've seen some of the old Ocean films and heard the music, and I know you have used it to bring in and bring out episodes of this podcast. I truly think that you were, in a lot of ways, ahead of your time with your musical and visual experience you were trying to create with Ocean. Very, very clever and creative.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, there was definitely bands that inspired us to do a lot of that, like whether it's Trans Am or even one of my favorites, David Bowie. Adding like a visual aspect to things. Pink Floyd. I think it's it can be really a great component of what a live show is. So.
One of the things I think I remember you telling me about some of your Ocean shows is you got to open for a very special band.
Yes. That's
very special to both of us.
For sure. One of my favorites.
Do you want to talk about that show and maybe that band a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, it was, again, and I don't want to like sound like a broken record, but just as things were going on in Denver, I was working at the Bluebird at the time. And, I guess it was like the late 90s, this was the early 2000s. I knew Peter Orr. Ocean had played a lot of shows at the Bluebird. Like when we were first started, like we played, I think 16 times at the Bluebird in one year, which was the most that any local band had done at that time. And we always had a pretty decent following. So Peter was always pretty willing to book us. And I remember I saw Devotchka listed. It was for a show in May. And I think this was in 2001. So they were pretty new still, but just a fucking fantastic band. And, I had seen them early on and just loved them to death. I thought they were so different and just great musicians, great people. And so I just asked Peter, I was just like, hey, like if you don't have an opener for this show, I know we don't really sound like Devotchka, but it would be pretty unique to have like a band that's, pretty digital as far as like the effects that Sean was using on his bass, and then also having like, the keyboard, digital keyboards, and then a pretty loud drummer. It was definitely different than what Devotchka was doing, which was also unique, but in much different ways, and Peter was totally into it and let us be a part of that. And it was probably one of the best shows I ever got to play in my life, like getting to open for those guys, and just fantastic people and such an amazing show and a great crowd, and, and just getting to experience all of it. Like I thought we had played a good show and I was pretty proud of us. And then, Devotchka came on and they opened with the trumpets like in the balcony, and I couldn't fucking believe it. Like it was so cool because Sean plays the trumpet, and I can't remember who the other person playing the trumpet was, which is horrible of me, but I can't remember if it was like an additional member or if it was actually one of the other members of the band, because I feel like it was the latter. But anyway, it was so cool to see. And then they, go down and start getting into their set. And I mean, they are still one of just the best bands that I think of that have ever were, birthed out of Colorado. And just glad I got to be a part of that at some point, and then of course I proposed to you at their concert like years later. So,
I remember.
Yeah, during one of our favorite songs, and, we're getting ready to go see them again in November on the 15th at the Betcher. So that's going to be pretty exciting too.
Yay. You can edit this yay out.
I could, but I won't.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about Murder Ranks.
Sure.
Can you please talk about the other members of the band?
Yeah.
And the kind of music that you were trying to create?
Well, it was, two guys that I was pretty used to playing with, both Mike and Ben from Vivid Imagination. And then the singer was Scratchy from the Warlock Pinchers, Dan Wanush, and it was kind of, the band was built around him. I'm not sure if I was actually the drummer that they wanted, but I'm definitely the drummer that they got. But it was great to play with those guys again. It was great to play with Mike and Ben again, just because like it had been years, because I think we started playing together, it was like 2008. And I mean, we weren't together for too long. I think we were done by like 2010 for a lot of reasons. There was a horrible car crash, which, I don't really want to talk about. But everybody ended up being okay. But I think, since then, not everybody was able to play like the way that they used to. And stuff has been hard. But, the band was built around Scratchy, and we did like a lot of dance hall, and, kind of took a lot, you could call it like musical quotation, or just like flat out like stealing some of like, the riffs or lines from certain songs, but then he would write other lyrics kind of around it, like, Broader Than Broadway. And I'm just kind of trying to think of some of the other songs that were kind of had like really, we based upon other, like, I would say dub style or dance hall songs from Jamaica. What? Anyway, so yeah, and it took some time. Like Mike and Ben and I got together and worked on a lot of the songs and kind of got things ready for Dan to come in with some of the lyrics. And then he had mentioned to us that he wanted to include MJ, and MJ was the daughter of Erica Brown. So it was MJ Brown, and she came in just with fucking pipes that you wouldn't believe. And we did some recordings with MJ, and I'm very grateful that we got to do those because, she didn't stick around for too long. She, had reasons that, she wasn't comfortable with either like some of the lyrics or some of what like Murder Ranks was and those kind of things. So, she kind of went and did her own thing, and we wished her the best because she really is like an amazing singer, as is her mom. And just, both, I think have been huge people within the Denver scene at different times, and Erica still is, doing stuff all the time, and she's just fantastic. So, Murder Ranks was a lot of fun. Like it was definitely something different because I had never done like the reggae style, and I tried to kind of really emphasize more of my hi-hat technique and not hitting the cymbals as much, and trying to switch up my style a little bit, and not doing like a lot of the stuff I had done in like the punk rock and heavy metal bands that I had played in.
So when we first met, Murder Ranks was your music that I first heard. And I really loved the King Scratchy and MJ voices, how they were so different. I thought that was very creative.
They played off each other so well. It was a lot of fun.
I was also very grateful for certain videos that were uploaded to YouTube. So, when I first started dating you, I just couldn't get enough. I was high as a kite and just high on love. And I just love these videos. And I would like to ask you about your friend, who I'll call Rib Witch, who supported you, in the friendship style of this band. And
would buy us a bunch of shots and hang out, and was one of our number one fans. So, I was lucky to have such a good friend and somebody that supported us so well. So thank you, Chris. He was always, and still to this day, he's always supported all of my bands. So yeah, Chris, has always been awesome. One of my best men in my wedding, and set up like a great bachelor party with a lot of my old friends, and, definitely supported a lot of Murder Ranks shows. So I was always grateful that he was there.
Well, let's talk about one more band.
Okay.
This one. Okay. I decided to wear this shirt special for today. Let's talk about Crash Endings.
Okay. Crash Endings kind of came like, it was, after Murder Ranks, I just actually wanted to play. I didn't want to play out really, because it's kind of frustrating to try to set up the shows and get people to go and all of that kind of shit. Like I literally just I needed to kind of get back to why I enjoy playing music and what I got out of it, like when I first started, which was just like really making music with my friends, and so I had asked Garrett, who I had known from back in junior high and high school, and he had played in different bands, and if he wanted to start writing together, and we did. And then as time went on, we thought we would add like a bass player, and we did. And we talked to Ben, and he was into it, and that was cool. And that's kind of just how things started. We had worked with another guitar player, our friend, who was playing also in Il Cativo and Ghost Buffalo. And he really wasn't into it, and really just around for a couple of practices. But his name was Matt, and he was a great guy. Matt is also somebody we've lost too soon. A great musician, and I was lucky for those few times I got to play with him. It was pretty exceptional. Garrett is also a good guitar player, and we wrote some decent songs, and it was fun. I think I used to frustrate the living shit out of Garrett, and honestly, he used to frustrate the living shit out of me too. So, but ultimately, I think we did like come up with some great songs and performances, and definitely shared some good times together. So, but it was over pretty quickly. I think we just did like an EP, and and I just kind of needed to just be done with playing out. Like, he was pretty insistent on wanting to play out, and it was a time when I really didn't want to, and I was pretty much over it. As far as that side went, I really just kind of wanted to write and make music together. It wasn't, doing the other stuff wasn't appealing to me. So I think that's where we just kind of butt heads a lot, and it just didn't end up working out.
But y'all made a great looking shirt.
Yes, that is a good shirt, which has a piece of my cymbal missing from it, which happened quite a few times in my life. Between the amount of cymbals that I broke, the chunks that would fall out of it, you got one of the chunks of one of the cymbals, and it may actually have been that chunk. But yeah, that was a cool shirt. I can't remember whose idea that was, but I thought that was a pretty cool idea. And like I said, the band was fun. And for as short of a time as it was, like, I'll always really cherish the times that I got to share with those guys, for sure.
I love hearing your stories. Even though some of these I've heard before, it's fun hearing again. Yeah. I know we've been talking for a while, so I'm going to change lanes.
Okay.
And we're going to go down old Denver. Okay. Back when it was cool. Because you and I agree on a lot of things, that there was some very, very special places in this city. Mm-hmm. There was a very special way that Denver was. I think one of the ways that Denver was so great was because it was kind of a secret. When I went to college, I went to school with a bunch of people from Chicago. And when they would see pictures of Denver, they would be like, oh, Denver has skyscrapers? So, yeah, we also have great food.
Yeah.
Great music.
For sure.
Great venues. And I would just like to take a little time to talk about some of the places that we've lost and some of the places, thankfully, that are still here. I know you've done a lot of this with your friends and some of the past podcasts, but let's start with the Bluebird.
Okay.
You worked there.
I did, and the Bluebird is still around, thank God. It's not, run by a local company, which it was at that time, and which I think was a lot more fun. They definitely did a lot more shows and definitely gave more local bands opportunities. Granted, you'd be playing on like a Sunday or Monday night, but you could get a show at the Bluebird if you could draw like 100 people, and they at least had could pay like the staff that was working, at that night. And there was a lot of shows like that back in that time. And, me and my friends worked there. It was me and Jed and Jager. And we met great people, Chris Bear and Rev, Jim Norris and Amy Fisher and Mike Lee and, Jubal and Big G. And I mean, I could just go on and on. Like, there was just, so many amazing people that we got to be with and share those times with. I know I'm leaving a lot of people out. I feel bad, but they were some of the best times of my life, like getting to work there. And then I was working part-time, like at an ice cream shop too. And it was just, some of the shows I got to see and work, whether it was, DRI, Dirty Rotten Imbeciles, or a lot of the local shows that I got to see and be a part of, like from Tarantella to Devotchka to, I saw Calexico play at the Bluebird for one of the first times that they were in Denver. And it was awesome, June of 44. The scene was a lot different and people were going out and doing those kind of things like all the time. And so there was the economy to support it, it was great. And I met Kevin Bacon and, there was a lot more to that story, but just getting to share those moments with people and like looking out at like, when I was like a security guard, which is kind of hilarious for those of you that know me, but, um, like I'd be working on the side of the stage and like you look out like at like what the band was seeing and just people being mesmerized by the music and just really getting to experience something that they love and enjoy. And that was really cool. And there was obviously shows that were harder. And like pretty much every like jam band was a hard show just because those guys would go until like 2:30 in the morning. They were usually kind of assholes and so was their crowd. It was usually like a bunch of Trustafarians from Boulder, So, yeah. Anyway. So, but it was just cool. It was great to be a part of the Bluebird family, and I met some of the best people in my life there. So I know I keep saying this, I cherish. I got to stop doing it, but those were amazing times, and I will always consider every one of those folks family. Like we spent so much time together, so many experiences. After the show, we would drink until like 2 or 3 in the morning. Got to drink with Tanny Carey from Tool, which was amazing, and really got to do some neat stuff. So I feel pretty lucky. I'm a lucky guy.
Especially now, as those who are listening to this podcast can probably hear a little dog.
She just woke up from a nap.
And she needs to go outside. So we are going to take a break
again
and take care of Esmeralda.
That's right. So
we will be back.
Good dog parents.
And we're back. And we all feel better. Ish. And what a nice little stop spot, just in case Nate wants to make this a 2-parter. Back to where we were, which was venues. We talked about the Bluebird. And we talked a little bit about the Mercury earlier. I don't know that we need to revisit that. So let's move on to the Lion's Lair.
Oh, it's probably one of my favorite places in Denver for many reasons, but definitely one of the coolest places to play. I did like it more when the stage was behind the bar. It's pretty unique. And, you get some pretty good interactions with bartenders and the crowd. But yeah, the Lion's Lair, it was always a shot in the dark of what you were going to get. A little bit sketchy at times, definitely smelled like piss. Or at least the bathroom did, because I remember the men's room literally, it was a toilet with no door and then like a trough like that you peed in. So you literally you were standing like right next to the other dude, no separation. And yeah, no, it didn't smell too good, but I did always love playing there and played there quite a few times, to a handful of people, all the way up to like sold out crowds, which was fun because it was, I think like selling out the Lion's Lair was like 60 people, but it was just a blast, because there were just, it would be such an energy. And, it'd be super stuffy in the room. That was back when you could smoke in bars and it was nuts. So those were good times. So lots of great shows.
East Colfax,
man. And, right next to Pete's Kitchen. So you would play, have a bunch of cheap drinks, and then you would walk over to Pete's Kitchen and, get some breakfast food at 2 a.m. So Pete's is open all night, and it was one, Denver classic. So, and Pete's is still there. You should definitely go support them as Denver's, doing their horrible construction on East Colfax and doing some horrible things to a lot of the local businesses in that area. I feel terrible. So, and you should definitely try to go out and support them as much as you can.
So did you ever play the Ogden?
Oh, yeah. Quite a few times. That was a lot of fun. We actually played one of our biggest shows at the Ogden where we got to open up for The Offspring and Guttermouth. That was in 95. It was right, like Offspring's big, hit record or whatever. And, Keep 'Em Separated, was like the big song, and they had a sold out show at the Ogden, and the local opener had dropped out, and Doug Kaufman, who owned it at the time, had given us a call. We were actually in Glenwood Springs for whatever reason. and drove back, instantaneously. So, yeah, that was a great experience. Like to play in front of I can't remember. I think it was like a little above 2,000 people, but it was unbelievable. And a lot of fun. So I was super nervous, and I remember when we walked out on stage, it was really dark, and then when the lights came on, I couldn't believe it. It was really crazy looking out at all those people. So, but we got to play there a lot of times, with the Voodoo Glow Skulls a couple of times, who were a great kind of ska and punk band, and excuse me. I think the Psychedelic Zombies maybe a couple of times, who were local friends of ours, and they were a pretty big band also at the same time. And yeah, I mean, playing the Ogden was fun. It was a lot of pressure, playing at a venue that large, but it was definitely cool to hear. I think my favorite part was when you did the sound check, and listening to my drums go through the big sound system was also, it was great. Loved it.
Now going more to the outskirts of Denver, but you can't mention the Bluebird and the Ogden without also mentioning the Gothic in Inglewood.
Yes, that's true. The old Gothic and the new Gothic. So both are, a fixture within the, Colorado music history. So in Inglewood music history. So, and a lot of great shows at the Gothic. Holy shit. I've seen a lot of great shows. Faith No More, Primus. I've played there. Warlock Pinchers, Foreskin 500. One of my favorite shows I played there was with Foreskin 500 and Angel Hair. And that was an amazing show. So it was the same day, I think, that the Rockies opened in Denver. It was April something, I can't remember, 1993. But yeah, it was anyway.
Well, I'll age myself because I consider Old Inglewood my home, but I remember when the Gothic actually played movies.
Right. So when did it go to porn?
I don't know. How about the Oriental? It's in my head because you and I just recently saw a great show there. Not a music show, but
yeah,
a great show. Have you ever played there? And
I did.
What do you think of that portion of Denver?
It's a great theater, and I've played there a couple of times. Kind of a mixed bag. I played a show where there was a decent amount of people, and then I played a show where there wasn't a lot of people. But it's a really neat space, and they had a good sound system, and the people that have run it, because I know Jim, Rev was a part of that at one point, and his, I think, wife is now, working there, who we saw when we were at Scott Thompson's show, one of my favorite comedians. And yeah, I think the Oriental is awesome just because there's so much character to a lot of the older theaters in Denver, and even the Elitch Theater, which they've started doing some stuff in again, which is super cool. And for those of you that don't know, that was a theater that was at the original Elitch's back when it was good. And centered around a garden and a, married couple that loved that amusement park, and it was a really neat place. But anyway, so that was the theater that was a part of that. But there's just so many cool places like that in Colorado. And I'm glad that, I think both the Ogden and Bluebird have historical preservation status or whatever within Denver, because Denver is so used to just fucking tearing everything down that has character. So anyway, I was very sad to see, the building of Muddy's go. And, I mean, right now I don't really know what's going to happen to Rup's drums, but that was another one that broke my heart. So, it's hard growing up and staying in the town that you grew up in. So, because there's a lot of things you hold on to. And I mean, I just had a friend kind of, talk to me about some nostalgia points, but, I mean, there's always things that you hold on to when you were younger, and even in the present, the things that mean something to you. And, just, it's hard watching those things go away.
I still miss 7 South.
Oh, me too. I miss Nancy, and she was so amazing, and that was such a cool spot too. So, and even now with it as the high dive, but it was so much cooler at 7 South. And there was great shows there too. And Nancy was a part of all that, and usually there every night. When I first started playing there, I was so young and looked so young. And I used to have to get a work permit. And I would have to stand outside until we went on stage. And then I had to like load my equipment like instantly and get out. Like I couldn't get close to the bar. Like it was pretty humorous. So, but I still loved playing there and did it quite often. And she was such a huge part of this city. So I'm glad I got to be a part of that.
I loved going there and just listening to Velvet Underground and drinking at that bar.
Totally. So she had a lot of Clash on the jukebox, and it was just great. It was great.
Ah, memory lane.
Yeah.
Let's go down another memory lane now.
Okay.
And let's talk about why there was such a long gap between the last Dollops episode and this Dollops episode.
Wow.
So if I can, I'd like you to start spring of 2023 and kind of tell us what was going on. Well,
it has been a long season 2 for sure. It's taken us 2 years to do it and finish it. I thought this was such a good idea from you, interviewing me, just because there's a lot of things that I wanted to talk about, but, I think coming with your questions and some of the stuff that you just wanted to focus on was a better way to do it. And I thought it was a really great idea. So I thought this was a good one to end with, and we'll just kind of see what happens in season 3, just because it's not as easy to find time to interview folks, and the editing is really long, and it's been a lot, but I love doing it and I want to keep doing it. So I'm going to try to figure out ways to make that, continue to happen. But so 2023, long story short, I'll try to keep it short, but I started feeling like super sick. I would say it was sometime in the spring, and it got progressively worse throughout that summer. I wasn't able to hold down food and getting sick all the time. So it even got to a point where like I was having a hard time like standing at work. So, and I went to my first endoscopy. I think it was either July or August, end of July, maybe early August. And I had been going to like the urgent care and emergency rooms, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. And we did this endoscopy. I think first I had done a colonoscopy. Sometimes I've done both at the same time, and that gets a little tricky.
Nate knows how to party.
Anyway, so they figured out that like 2 parts of my small intestine were collapsing, and to the extent that like a lot of food wasn't going through anymore. And they suggested that we could do, endoscopies where they kind of ballooned those sections back up, but that was actually fairly painful
and temporary.
And then, so what we really had to do was consider surgery, which ended up being pretty crazy. And, I never thought I would be going through that again, like at 46, 7. Anyway, I can't remember. How old am I now?
49.
So I guess that was last year, so 48. But anyway, so we get to February, and meanwhile I'm still doing episodes like throughout all of this, and Andrew and I decided to kind of go our separate ways, and then Art kind of came in, and Art had been working on some of the earlier episodes too in season 1, with kind of putting together a lot of the info on the stuff at Littleton Town Hall, and then also with Kathy and Smitty, which is one of my favorite episodes. But so we've done all this stuff, and through all of that, I was getting pretty sick, and got to the point of the surgery, which was booked for February, and I was in a lot of pain at that point. I was having some really rough weeks. So, and there was a moment where like my surgery got postponed because it was supposed to be at, one hospital and ended up having to be moved to another. And then that caused issues. And anyway, so this was supposed to be a simple surgery, and they were going to use like a robot, and they were going to go in and, do these little fixes to my intestines. And like this surgeon that we went through, Dr. Leo Alfaro, who's just like the craziest, best like surgeon I've ever had the pleasure of meeting, and literally saved my life on many occasions, but was just so amazing through that whole situation. Not only did he admit that it was one of the hardest surgeries he ended up having to do, but it did get pretty complicated. So to kind of go on, like, as things went, like, it wasn't an easy surgery, and there was a lot of scar tissue from my first surgery in '89, and surgery took a lot longer. They came out and talked to Tracy about like some of the more severe options that would like it could end up being, and we didn't end up going that way. And he was able to kind of fix it. And then, I got out of surgery that was supposed to be 4 hours. It ended up being 8, right?
It was supposed to be 2 to 3 hours, 3 days in the hospital.
Yeah.
It ended up being an 8-hour surgery. And you were in the hospital for that recovery for 10 days, or 11 days.
Right. And then, but we had to go back to the hospital like 7 or 8 times.
Yeah.
So definitely the hardest recovery. Like when I woke up, I felt like I had been hit by a freight truck. So, and I had my amazing wife supporting me 100%, 150%. I know that's impossible, but she was really like, not only was she still working at the time, but she was coming up to the hospital every day. And I was in the ICU for a while, and then moved to like one of the floors. And, it was a tough recovery because I ended up getting an infection. And then there was like leaks in my incisions, and holy shit, like anything that could happen did happen. So they were trying all these different things to try to get things to work. And, eventually they did let me go home. But at that point, I still wasn't eating. I didn't eat for like 2 months. So, and that was horrible. I can honestly say. Obviously I'm getting like, nutrition through a tube, but that like when you don't have anything crossed like the threshold of your mouth for like 2 months, it's just, I don't know. It was awful. But, anyway, once we did get home, like Tracy had taken all this time to learn like how to be basically my home nurse. And I had a real home nurse come and visit like once a week and do like blood tests and stuff like that. But Tracy literally did everything else, which was maintaining the TPN, which is what was feeding me. So she had to do that twice a day. And then doing the, what was it for hydration? Just like my regular IV bags. So, but like she learned all of that. It amazed the shit out of me. And, I was really lucky to have her through all of that, because I wouldn't have been able to get through any of that on my own. So it would have been awful. And she just had my back and kept me happy, and would come and visit, and Chris would come and visit, and my sister would come and visit, and my sister was trying to help out as much as possible, and Shannon was amazing too. And it just goes to show that I've always had great people in my life, and I've been pretty lucky. So I'm pretty grateful for all of that, and I just love them so much for all of it. So thank you. And so thank you, hon. And yeah, so that became hard. I really didn't, I at some point, like I gave up like with not being able to eat, and I just told the doctors I was going to try it. And, against their best wishes, like he was just like, well, just let me know how it goes. And it ended up kind of working. Like I had two drains in me at the time that I had already started back at work. And so I was carrying these things. So like, and this is kind of the stuff I've always dealt with like my whole life, like even on tours. And, like I said, I had my medication stolen in Albuquerque, and it took like almost a week to get it back to me. So I didn't actually get it until like the last show of the tour. So that didn't really work out. So, but anyway, it was also much harder to do those kind of things, like, get your medication in a different state, and, you're 18 or 19 years old, and you're not really ready for everything the world has to offer, just as of yet. But but anyway, to go back to where we were, so it was a long recovery. I started feeling much better, I think, around June. I started to go back to work full time. They had considered that I was going to need a second surgery, and that didn't end up happening. And then I ended up doing my first podcast episode after that in July with Storm Glore, who, is a city council member in Glendale where I work. And that was really cool because he's, a music professor at CU, and I enjoy doing these podcasts with Art. And then after that, we did Jim and Matt at Mutiny, and it's been much more spread out, right? Like, I've definitely been taking my time with things. I've had a lot going on, focused on the health stuff for a long time, and it really knocked me out this time. So being like the age that I'm at, it was a long and hard recovery. So losing my dad, so all of this has kind of just sucked. My mom has also been sick and up and down through a lot of different times. So my sister and I have been driving down to see her and be with her. She's doing much better now, and I'm really happy about that, but it's just been a lot. So, that's a lot of the reason why this season took forever. It took 2 years, and, but I wanted to give each, season its substance and put out some fun episodes for everybody, and try to kind of focus on the amazing stuff that has happened in Denver. So, and throughout Colorado, right? So, like, one of my best shows was in Telluride. So, anyway.
Well, this is a show about Nate, so I'm going to pepper you with some other questions that I have.
Sure.
And especially because I want to end this on a different note than you being sick. But yeah. I'm looking at you now.
Sure.
You look great. I think you're cute. That's for damn sure.
Okay.
So a lot of people who listen to your podcast have known you for a long time.
Yeah.
And I know you've said earlier that you have had just great support and great family and great friends for your whole life. Another thing that you've been really lucky to have is some great dogs. So sure. I was wondering if you would take a few minutes, especially for the people who remember Bonzo.
Oh, yeah. Well, Bonzo, he was such a character. One of the only dogs that I know that has actually taken a shit on the stage at the Bluebirds. So, he was just he was just such a funny dog. I picked him up from the Dumb Friends League. Like, I was working at the Bluebird at the time, and I was living with Jed and Jager. And, I had just gotten through a bad breakup, and like Bonzo was kind of my rescue, and, he kind of rescued me too. So, we kind of learned and grew together, and he was a character. He used to come to the Bluebird all the time and hang out, and, a lot of people loved him, and I got to have 13 really special years with him. So that was pretty awesome. And he was my best friend. So I was lucky to have that dog. And, it paved the way for our little girl now, Esmeralda, who we've had for, I think, 9 years, because we got her just a little bit after we were, started dating. And she was 3 at the time. So she's our baby. And Milo, when I grew up, who was also very sweet. And, I've had a lot of, friends' dogs, and, just people that I've known, and dogs are just amazing. So I'm glad I've had a lot of good dogs in my life.
Esmeralda can tell that you're talking about her, so she's here. Like,
totally. She's
I
looking
hear
at
my
me.
name. Do you have food?
Do you have food?
I ate my donut. Nate hasn't eaten his donut.
No.
All
Here's
right.
a big breakfast.
I ate breakfast too. It didn't stop me. All right. Let's talk about a few of your favorite drummers.
Yeah.
Just list them off and some of the qualities that make you love them. So I know you're going to start with Taylor.
Taylor for me, Taylor Hawkins from the Foo has always been somebody that I looked up to. I wasn't too aware of him when he played with Alanis, but once he started with Dave and Pat, and well, I guess it was Chris Shiflett and Nate. Actually, Chris Shiflett came in later. And so let me start over. So it was Dave and Nate Mendel and Taylor Hawkins, who I think, Taylor came in after William Goldsmith, who was also a good drummer, but just not, I think, the right drummer for the Foo. And Taylor much more was somebody that I think bonded obviously with Dave. I just finished Dave's book, which was amazing. And I miss Taylor because he was such a character and such a phenomenal drummer, so passionate and a nice guy. I've always heard stories about him buying equipment for kids and going into Guitar Center and having accounts like where he would just like kids like just pick out what they want, and that shit's really cool, And I had a lot of people kind of help me with stuff like that, like when we needed help, and so that was pretty awesome. I've tried to kind of pass that favor along. I gave that drum set to that girl who is a drum student of one of my friends, and she loves it and is playing all the time, and it's just like when you give somebody the opportunity to do like what they love, like it can be such a positive thing. So I kind of took, like, Smitty kind of used to do a lot of stuff like that for me, and a lot of other guys associated with Littleton, and just friends who helped us along the way, and worked on things with us for next to nothing because we weren't making any money either. It was just for the fun of doing it and having a great time and getting to do these things together. So it was pretty cool, and I'm glad I got to be a part of all of that.
Do you want to mention one more drummer you really like?
Well, of course, Dave, and people like Brendan Canty and Matt Cameron and Dale Crover, who I got to meet when we did the Warlock Pinchers reunion. That was really neat. And there's just so many great drummers. Topper from the Clash, and William Calhoun. Yeah, I could just go on and on. Of course, John Bonham, so Stuart Copeland, so a lot of like my local friends. I think Jed Kopp is an amazing drummer, and let's see, Chris Traeger when he was in Burst, and
Poe.
What's that?
Poe.
Poe is freaking one of the best drummers I've ever seen in my life, and Denver has so much talent. Mark, my drum teacher, Mark Foster, who's been playing for years. And one person I definitely want to give a shout out to is my buddy Mark Kosta, who ended up taking his life years ago, and it still breaks my heart. He's a good friend, and I'm sad that happened. And I wish he was still around. So, good drummer, hell of a good guy. And he was one of my students for a little bit, and I don't know, I miss him, and maybe could have been there a little bit more, but definitely Denver has awesome talent in this town, and some of the best bands. I brought up the Warlock Pinchers and the Hellman, and Devotchka, of course. Foreskin 500, Wretched Refuse, Il Cativo, Planes Mistaken for Stars, Ghost Buffalo. So many bands have come and gone. Dressy Bessie, and I think Dressy Bessie's still around. I hope so. The Apples were fantastic. Like, there was so much character to this scene, and that's what I've talked about, like, at a lot of these shows. Like, you would have these mix of crowds from, like, punk rockers to metalheads, to, folks that were, like, cowboys, and then you had the skinheads, and, like, it was a mix for sure. One of the most craziest shows I ever went to was Public Enemy and Anthrax and Primus at the Mammoth on East Colfax. And that was a crazy show, for sure. But I had a great time. And, so there have been a lot of great drummers in my life. And, I mean, Bob Rupp was a huge influence. I was sad to see Rupps go. Wasn't, really super stoked with what it turned into. But Bob was such a great guy. And Jim Cook, who also was a part of the good years, he was awesome. So I just want to give a shout out to those guys too, and great drummers. I mean, some of my best friends in town have been I think the best drumming talent that I've ever seen, and have been, huge influences in my life. Pete Nguyen and all the guys, that I grew up with. I learned a lot from all of them. So it was great getting to be a part of all that.
Tomorrow is somewhat of an anniversary for us.
Sure, 10 years.
Since our...
first time we met.
Yes.
So.
On our third date, you asked me who my favorite drummer was. Yes. Do you remember who I said?
Yes, Roger Taylor.
Just a few more questions, then we can wrap up. But I'm having way too much fun. Okay. And now I'm all amped on sugar.
Sugar bomb.
Couple of other things I know about you and I know you love.
Yep.
How many times have you met Eddie Vedder?
Twice.
And the one time you didn't know you were talking to him?
That was at Lollapalooza for sure. And what's funny about that is, I specifically went to see Pearl Jam. But in my defense, he had his hair up and wasn't, in a hat and, just kind of, I just didn't recognize him. Our seats were pretty bad, I'll be honest with you. And, I hadn't seen Pearl Jam up close. I loved their music, but, at the time, I don't think we really had MTV at our house, and I hadn't seen a lot of their videos. So, but I loved their music. So, and that was the first time. So we had me and my friend Levi had gone to get something to eat, and because Ministry was so loud, unbearably loud, and Eddie was just walking around. So I came over and started talking to us, and was a great guy, and ended up signing my T-shirt. Once I kind of figured it out, it took me a minute to put it together, but I worked it out. So,
Anybody who knows you knows that there's something else that you are very, very passionate about. I am seeing the logo on the hat you're wearing right now, and that is the Colorado Avalanche.
For sure.
So what is your prediction for the 25-26 hockey season?
Well, going all the way. So Stanley Cup, baby.
It's one of the reasons that Nate doesn't go out anymore, because starting in October and going through whenever, we like to be home, a fire going, dog with us.
Yep.
But we are going
Jerseyed up. So
we are going to at least one game this season, so I'm excited for that.
For sure.
Although it is the Stars, but I can boo Douche Ranger.
For sure. Yeah, it'll be fun.
All right, one last question.
Okay.
And we talked about your dad.
We did.
And losing him this year. You dedicated this episode to him.
Yep.
And you did talk about how supportive Gary, your dad, for the record, fantastic father-in-law. Just fantastic father-in-law. But you talked about how supportive he was when you were a kid. But even before you started playing music and playing shows, you went to a lot of concerts with him.
Yeah.
And
my first concert was with him.
So you told me the first concert was with him. If you just want to talk about maybe one that's in your head.
Well, there was a lot, I got to see two of the Beatles with him. So Ringo and Paul. And then I've got a dog who's really begging for my attention. But then, my first concert with him, which was probably the most memorable, just because there was times where he really went out of his way for me, and it was the Monkees. and Weird Al Yankovic at Red Rocks, which was amazing. I was 11 years old. It was 1987. And July, I remember it vividly. So just walking up that ramp at Red Rocks for the first time and, seeing a show at such a magical venue. I think one of the best in Colorado by far, if not, the entire country and world, in my opinion. But, yeah, there was a lot, we got to see Tom Petty, which meant a lot to me. Black Crowes opened for that show. He went to all of my shows. Bob Dylan. It just goes on and on. I took him to see Calixico, which he had a blast at. And, he really just loved music. He was the reason I started, really getting into music. It was his music library, and then my sister's influence, too. And, of course, my mom. But, I think it came more kind of from my dad, when John Lennon was shot, he took me downtown to the candlelight vigil. And we did the walk around the park, and it was something that always stuck with me. And, yeah, so those kind of things. He was a huge Beatles fan and, always told me to stick with playing music and doing what I wanted to do and the things that made me happy. So I always take that to heart.
He is missed.
For sure.
Well, Nate.
Yes? Tracy? Are we done?
Almost. Thank you for allowing me to interview you.
Yeah, this was a good idea, Ellen.
It's been an honor to be a host of this podcast today. And I just wanted to say that it really has been fun watching you grow with this project. So I hope you know that whatever you decide to do here with this, I'm with you till the wheels come off.
I know.
But it is your podcast, so I will let you say your final words and wrap her up.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate it. And, I'm glad that we did this. I thought it was a really good idea. I had been started this with Andrew and Art, once Andrew went his separate ways, and doing something like this I thought would be fun too, and we'll just kind of see what Art and I want to do, and maybe you, in season 3, we'll just kind of see. There's definitely a lot more stories to be told, right? And I sure would like to tell them. I would like, I've kind of tried to put out some feelers to, Tammy from Dressy Bessie, and just some of the folks that I would like to talk to as far as some of the women in the local music scene, I think would be a good episode. Amy from Rainbow Sugar. I know we couldn't really make that episode work out, but I would like to try to get that to work out maybe at some point. I think that would be a good idea, but I do have some ideas, and so we'll just kind of see what happens. But it definitely is a lot of work, so we'll just kind of see, how long the seasons are moving forward. So, because it took me 2 years this last time, and we didn't even get the full 7 episodes, which is, kind of, I guess, like a English season, because their episodes are usually so short. I don't know, anybody that's watched the young ones or anything can attest to what I'm talking about. But yeah. So, no, I'm glad we could do this, Tracy. So thank you. And thank you for all of your love and support between the podcast and my stories about all of this stuff. And it has been a lot of fun, just catching up with folks and even having the chat sessions later on. I know I talked to you and I'm just I just got another text from all the, Revolutiones boys. And it's awesome. So I'm glad we could do this, and all the stories have been great, going down to Colorado Springs and seeing Sean Melody and, getting to experience all of these great things with people. It's been a lot of fun. So I would like to try to connect with people from the Rainbow or some of the older clubs that have been around. But I know, some folks are just like not really interested in doing some of this stuff. So, and that's cool too. I would like to go and talk to some bands, but I don't really have a lot of like contacts anymore. So we'll just kind of see. But it has been a lot of fun, and I'm glad we could do this today. And I really did enjoy talking about a lot of the bands that I was in and all the things that I got to do. And I didn't really get into the crazy stories just because, I got into some of it. But, I mean, I could go on for hours and hours and hours, honestly.
And my mom might listen to this. So.
Yeah, so like we want to keep it, a little bit on the homogenized side. So, but we always appreciate folks listening to Dollops and getting to share this with us. And I'm glad that and hope you continue to enjoy it because it's been a lot of fun. And for everybody we've gotten to share this with and record with and the different hosts and people that have shared their stories and everything that we've gotten to do together, it's been a lot of fun. So I just want to thank everybody. So, and you too, Trace. So you're amazing. So, and our little dog, I think it's time for us to refocus our attention back to the fact that we are her staff, and that's just how it is. So, all right. Well, peace out, everybody. We'll be talking to you soon. And I'm sure there'll be more episodes. So good luck. Take care of each other. We love you. Thank you for listening. And just be peaceful with each other. And, hopefully we'll make it through the next, 3.5, hopefully 4 years. Anyway, yes, let's all look out for each other. All right. Big love.
You don't know what's going on. Don't try to figure it out, my brother. You don't know what's happening here. I guess you're better off when you're never at the best. It's right. Before the he will strike. Every other motherfucker built this fight. And when the shit starts falling, people grab onto their swords. Before they strike. Before they strike right. Okay,